Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that covers all things marketing. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast gives you the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. Whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand, you've come to the right place. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast starts now.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and on today's episode, we are talking about some questions you should ask yourself when creating your brand. I have 20 questions that I want you to take note of, and when you start creating your brand, ask yourselves these questions, and some of them are tough. Some of them are going to be maybe an entire week to answer or an entire month, but some of them are also really fun and recharging and will help you shake up your brain juices a little bit to push forward. Obviously, right now, we're all in quarantine and self-isolation, depending on when you're listening to this, but right now, everyone really is just sort of on their own, working on their own, and maybe this is your opportunity to start that company you've always wanted to start, or redesign your brand, or create a new brand, or create a new brand off of your original brand. There are just so many creative outlets right now that we all have, and I think it's really important to try to utilize those creative outlets because it can be such a hard time right now. It can suck because you know what? It does suck, and it's hard, and it's difficult, but something that I have definitely found that makes things a little bit easier is using this time for good, using this time to be productive and to get things done and to create things. So if you're similar to me, and if you're not, that's okay, but if you're similar to me, then this is a really great podcast for you to listen to because these 20 questions really are going to get your brain juices flowing and inspire you and push you to be creating something new. So all that and more on today's episode of the GSMC Marketing Podcast. I would love to ask you before it gets started to please subscribe, rate, and review. It means a whole lot to us for just feedback reasons and also so that we can create data based on who watches what episodes you guys like, which ones you don't like. It's really important for us to get an idea of that so that going forward, we create the type of content you actually want to hear. Because I don't want to keep creating episodes on the Kardashians and on Netflix if you guys don't want to hear about that. So write it in the review, reach out through social media. We're very active on all of our sites, and we would really love to hear from you. But for now, let's get right back into today's podcast. So we are going to get started with some news stories about what is happening in the marketing world. I really like starting the podcast off like this because I think it's a great way for us all just to sort of get warmed up. It's sort of like doing a light jog before you start sprinting. It's a really great way for us to be like, oh, this is what the bigger companies are doing. This is how the bigger companies are being effective. And here's how I can sort of learn from their mistakes or learn from their progress towards my own marketing. So it's always really important to start off with a little bit of news. If you guys like the news segment, comment it down below. If you hate it, comment it down below. We got to know. We need some details from you guys. We need some feedback. Our first news story of today is that Pinterest traffic increase causes them to start a verified merchant program. So it is no mystery that more online social media sites are getting used now due to the coronavirus pandemic. Pinterest has been seeing a significant rise in traffic to their site, as well as an increase in searches for keywords like home organization up 43%, spa day at home up 19%, makeup tutorial for beginners up 180%, and kid-friendly recipes up 64%. First of all, side note, some of us are coming out of this having never worn makeup for the past 2 weeks, and some of us are coming out makeup geniuses, and that is proven by the fact that makeup tutorial for beginners is up 180%. That is insane. So in response to this, the company is investing in a new shopping feature, saying in a statement, As we continue to invest in shopping and the success of retailers, we're introducing new features to help retailers of all sizes get discovered and distribute their products in spaces where pinners are most likely to shop. By applying to be a verified merchant, you will receive a blue checkmark on your profile page that allows you early access to a new conversion insights tool. Verified merchants will also get a special shop tab at the top of their profiles, which puts all of their shoppable products in one place. So this is really great, and I'm really happy that Pinterest is doing this because obviously this is related to the global pandemic that we're all in right now. However, it is something positive that's coming out of it. This is a feature that was never available on Pinterest before, but people were obviously trying to sell their merchandise on Pinterest. So it's really nice to see them noticing a problem in their market and fixing the problem. And I think it's really innovative, really smart, and very, very sleek. Let me know what you think of this. If you're on Pinterest, if you would use it, perhaps you will start using Pinterest now because of this product. So let me know in the review down below or reach out through social media. Our second news story of today is that the Queen speaks out in a special address during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Queen has spoken out to the people of Great Britain, as well as the people of the world, in her latest address from Windsor Palace on April 5th. Her speech assured everyone that although times are tough and they might not get better soon, she believes we will see our friends again soon. Most notably, she thanked the healthcare workers and those who have stayed working out in the world and providing for our country every day. She continued to say, "I am sure the nation will join me in assuring you that what you do is appreciated and every hour of your hard work brings us closer to a return to more normal times." Now, obviously, I did not say that with a British accent, so it does not sound as elegant coming from my mouth. But I do encourage you to go watch her full address. It was empowering. It was impactful. A lot of really great information was said. It was uplifting, but also very, very aware, and it made you feel like you weren't alone for a second during this pandemic because, man, the Queen just has a way of addressing us, and it's really great and it's really amazing. So I definitely encourage you to go listen to her full address and just to get some of the insider info on what is happening right now and just hear it from her side. Our third news story of today is that comedians have band together to help bring some relief and laughter during this pandemic. On Saturday, April 4th at 6 p.m., some of the biggest names in comedy will be on the Laugh Aid is a comedy live stream showcasing comedians in their quarantine states. This event has been organized by the Comedy Gives Back COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund that supports stand-up comedians in times of need. Support is offered via financial relief grants. Comedians such as Whitney Cummings, Adam Sandler, Dave Attell, Joel Kim Booster, Bill Burr, Dane Cook, Anthony Jeselnik, Jessica Curson, Bert Kreischer, Howie Mandel, Mark Manon, Big J. Okerson, Patton Oswalt, Tom Papa, Ray Romano, Jeff Ross, Liza Scherzinger, the Scholar Brothers, Bob Saget, Amanda Seales, Dan Soder, David Spade, Taylor Tomlinson, and Gina Yashir will all be on the special. This event may have already happened by the time this podcast is being released, and if it did, please let me know if you watched it, if you know how much money was raised during it. It's definitely something I will be following up on because, guys, what a wonderful, wonderful thing. I just listed so many names that are going to be on the show, but think of all the people it took to organize this and who are coordinating it and who are working so incredibly hard to make sure this event is going off, especially over a live stream. There can be a lot of moving pieces that people don't consider. And it's an incredible thing to see all these people, especially all these really big names, coming together for a really great cause because being a struggling comedian, I do stand-up comedy, but I don't do it as a full-time job. But your full-time job really would stop if all the restaurants and clubs closed down. And so a lot of people are being affected by this. And so it is nice to see people noticing a certain brand of people who are being affected. And obviously they're not the only ones, but it's nice just seeing all the different charities there are in the world right now and how they're helping different people across the world. If you know of any organizations you think need a little bit of love, a little bit of publicity, please write them in the review down below. Reach out through social media. We would love to learn more about some organizations that are trying to help, and we would really love just to learn more about that. So please do not be shy, and please write it in the review down below. Okay, everyone, we are going to go ahead and take a short break from the podcast, but when we come back, we are going to go through our first 10 questions. So I recommend on this break, really enjoy it. Get your pen and paper out, get your coffee out, get your water bottle out, because the first 5 questions, they're hard. They're hard questions. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys. Do we have easier questions eventually? Absolutely. But the first 5 are pretty tough. So you're going to want to take a moment to really just think and sit and fantasize about what the answers could be. So all that and more on the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and on today's episode, we are talking about the top 20 questions you should be asking yourself when creating your brand. So obviously, the brand is the backbone and the face of your organization. It is the most important thing you will create because it touches everything else you create. You can't start creating without the brand. So it's so important. And if you're thinking about starting your company right now, or you're looking to take your company to the next level, right now is the perfect time to really sit down and think about these 20 questions and write really long answers for them, because we got all the time in the world right now, guys. So let's get into it. Number 1. Oh, also, I do want to say, I said it before the break, but let me remind you, the first 5 questions are very, very hard, and they're very heavy, and they're going to be questions you're going to want to take a moment and really think about and not just rush through. These questions are the foundation of your brand, so really try to take note of them. Number 1, what is your goal with this brand? This is a very important question, but it's something that is so easily overlooked, because the answer could be as simple as, I want to make money, and this brand is a way to do that. But that's not really it. That's not the reason. That might be the reason you're trying to start your own business, but I'm willing to bet that that is not the reason you're going forward with this brand. So really what this question is what is your goal with this idea? When you see someone else pick it up and buy it, what should they feel? What should they do with it? What is their purpose with this product and with this brand? That is what I'm asking when I say, what is your goal with this brand? Number 2, why do you care about this brand? So it's very easy just to focus on the customers all the time, and absolutely you should be focusing on your customers. This is not me saying ditch those jabronis and just focus on yourself. But when you're first starting out, when you're first creating your brand, it can be so essential for you to take a moment to focus on yourself and ask yourself, why do you care about this brand? Why is this brand the brand you're going with? Why is this the product you're going to put all of your life savings, your effort, your time, your energy, your emotional feelings, your emotional baggage, your family? Why is all of this worth it for this brand? I told you guys, they're heavy questions. They are heavy questions. Number 3, Why should other people care about this brand? So now this is the time to bring those jabronis back and really try to focus on why would someone want to buy this? You now know why you would buy it. You now know why you care about it. Why do other people? Why should other people? What makes yours different? Which is actually question number 4. What makes this brand different? There are so many different clothing, hair, makeup, plumbing, soap, linen, there's every business, guys. You are never going to have an original idea. But what makes this brand different from all of those brands? What makes your clothing brand better than all the other clothing brands? What makes it different? Why is this going to work? Number 5, what should people think when they see this brand? So this is an initial thought. When they take a look at your logo, when they take a look at your product, what should be their first thought? Once you start with that, everything else is going to fall into place. All right, let's all take a deep breath because I just asked you 5 very, very tough questions that could be very, very overwhelming. So I want you to take a break, sip your water, get a new pen if it's already out of ink, and really just try to consider all the answers you just wrote down. Now, I also understand that although I did explain them, maybe you need to pause the podcast so that you can have some time to actually answer those questions. Because I'm telling you, the rest, you're going to be like, I know the answer to that. I know the answer. But those first 5 are so important, so impactful, and so foundationally important for your brand that you can't just skip over them. So really take some time right now to think about that. Number 6, what brands inspire you? So go onto Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever search engine you prefer and find brands that have a style you like. Remember, they do not have to sell the same product as you. You're just looking for branding inspiration. So a really good example is I really like the colors that Victoria's Secret uses in their brand, but I don't sell lingerie. So it's sort of like, all right, I like their theming, I like their brands, I like the colors that they use, I like the vibe that you get when you go into that store, I like the way they use their marketing. So I'm going to put it on a Pinterest board. I'm going to write it down. But maybe I'm also then going to go take a look at Bed Bath & Beyond because I really like the way they do their marketing as well. So I'm taking inspiration from there. I'm taking inspiration from there as well. So do not try to limit yourself by just looking at brands that sell the same product as you. Really try to do a wide search for a bunch of different brands, get a bunch of different ideas, and really try to focus on those brands that inspire you. Number 7, what brands do you hate? Just like you have to find brands that inspire you, you also need to find brands that don't inspire you. The ones that you're like, that is the worst. Why would they ever do that? Who paid who to make that? It is disgusting. I hate it. That's going to uninspire you, obviously. But also it might ignite something in you because you know you can do it better. Again, this does not have to be the same product that you are selling. You're just looking for inspiration. You are just looking for things you like and things you don't like. Number 8, what colors will you associate with your brand? Try trying to find these 3 colors. Your main color, which will be your theme. Your secondary color, which will be a complement to your theme. And your third color, which is a detail color. This will be little specks that you throw in. So perhaps your main color will be the pink background that you use on all of your posters. But then your secondary color is the light white, the pearl color that you use for all of your wording and logos and anything that goes on the poster. But your detail color might be the splash of green that is just sort of hinted behind the pink. I know I just described 3 very weird colors, but trust me, the detail color always seems to be a weird color. Number 9. If you were to come out with a related liquor brand, what would you call it? This question might seem silly, but when you're thinking about your brand, it's easy to get stuck on your one idea. So let your brain wander and think about alternative brands you could create after this one. Coming up with names for your future autobiography, album, or liquor company can help you keep your creative brain's juices flowing while you're working on your main idea. So basically, I'm giving you a break to take a creative walk down inspiration lane and say, okay, well, if my soap business is called Bubbles, then maybe I would start a soda company called Bubbles, and they would be related but not related. And that's sort of how you can start brainstorming the idea of this like multi-million conglomerate you are building. And maybe it'll never get that big, but it really is a great way to sort of let your juices flow in the creative department and really let your brain wander and discover new things and new ideas. And you'll be able to come back to the one thing you were stuck on and really be able to take charge of that. Number 10, what fonts do you want to use? So this is very similar to the colors, but it's with fonts. So you'll have your main font, which is your theme, your secondary font, which is a complement, and then your detail font. So again, the main font will be your logo, your name, the Bubbles soap. That will be in their main font. But then your secondary font will be created by Ashley Jennings. And then your detail font would be in association with Bubbles Soda. That's a weird company. I keep describing weird companies, and I apologize. I feel like one day I'm going to go through all of the podcast episodes and put together this company I've made up. I often talk about soap. I've often talked about food, and now I'm coming up with Bubbles, Soda, and soap. So we got a lot of weird companies. We got a lot of weird ideas going on here. But I do always hope that my examples help you sort of get the bigger picture of what I'm trying to get at. Because that's the whole point here, guys. I am trying to help you. So if I am helping you, please feel free. Tell me about it in the review. Subscribe to this podcast and reach out through social media. For now, we're going to go ahead and take a short break from the podcast. But when we come back, I got 10 more questions, the final 20, for you to answer. So stay tuned for that, because you are listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and on today's episode, we are asking you to answer the 20 questions you should be asking yourself when you're starting your brand. So obviously right now is a time of solitude, and a lot of people can find creativity in all the silence. If you want to be creative and you want to be productive, but you're feeling stuck and you don't know what to do or where to go next, then these 20 questions will really help you get your brain juices flowing a little bit, get that creativity ball rolling, and hopefully help you create a brand that you're very proud of and you can leave this quarantine with feeling very proud of the work that you did. So before the break, we went over the top 10 questions you should be asking yourself. And again, I'm going to repeat them, but please remember the first 5 are so incredibly heavy, but they're so incredibly important. So if you try to only answer 5 of the questions from this list, make it those 5. So just to review, number 1, what is your goal with this brand? Number 2, why do you care about this brand? Number 3, why should other people care about the brand? Number 4, what makes this brand different? Number 5, what should people think when they see this brand? Number 6, what brands inspire you? Number 7, what brands do you hate? Number 8, what colors will you associate with your brand? Number 9, if you were to come out with a related liquor brand, what would you call it? And number 10, what fonts do you want to use for this brand? So obviously a wide variety there of questions that are intended to help you move on in your creative process, but also to help you build a foundation and really get into the nitty-gritty details of what your brand will be. So let's jump right back in with the next 10. Number 11, if you could describe your brand in 5 words or short phrases, what would they be? So one thing you will have to do for your brand is write an elevator pitch and write a bio and all these things. But a really great way to get started on all that writing you have to do is by describing your brand in 5 words or short phrases. I've heard that people only try to do this with 5 words, but I like adding the short phrases because I think sometimes your brand is a little more complicated than 5 words, and it's easier to summarize in short phrases, or maybe your brain just likes short phrases better than the 5 words idea. So definitely try both of them. Let me know in the review down below which one works for you, because I'm a short phrases girl, but there have been some brands I've worked for that can totally be summed up by 5 words. So it really is dependent on the brand, but I do recommend trying that. Number 10, what celebrity spokesperson would you want for this brand? Again, this one might sound a little silly, but it's actually really useful to think about, especially if you pick a singer. Picking a singer might mean that you like a song, or a particular song makes you think of your brand. Find that song and then put it on and repeat when you start building your brand. You can make it your anthem. Now, obviously, Taylor Swift might never be the spokesperson for your soap brand, but playing the song Clean by her in the background, maybe that gets you pumped up to work on your brand. Maybe it inspires you. So every time you hear that song, you get back into work, and that's a terrific feeling that I think a lot of us need in our lives. So find your celebrity spokesperson and find your anthem. Number 13, what is your merchandise going to look like? Are you going to have sweaters and purses and keychains and hats? Maybe you're making sweaters, purses, keychains, and hats. If so, what is your merchandise going to be other than that? What is going to be the take-home object people have that will make them remember your brand? A really great example, I talk about them a lot on this podcast, but there is a bar in Seattle called Optimism, and you can buy their glasses, you can buy t-shirts and mugs and water bottles and just funny stickers and stuff like that, but it's a great way. So when I'm not at the bar, I'm still thinking about them. It's a really great way for us to continue the train of, although you're not currently buying from us, you might again in the future because you've invested in our product. Number 14, what are the platforms you want your brand to be showcased on? So this one's a little bit more technical, but I really want you guys to think, is my brand more of an Instagram brand? Could my brand work on TikTok? Could my brand work on Twitter? These are the questions you need to ask yourself so that you know what platforms will work best for your brand. Number 15, how does your brand reflect on your product? So a brand and a product should be twins. They should not just be brother and sister. You should always see the brand and then see your product and associate them immediately. So really try to ask yourself, how does your brand reflect on your product? Number 16, how would you feel about your brand if you saw it at a store? So say it was not your brand and you were just at the store, you were at Target, and you saw Bubble Soda and you saw the logo. Are you attracted to the logo? Would it make you buy the Bubble Soda? What are your feelings about your brand? You're going to have to take a step back and really try to evaluate things on this one because it's going to be so easy for you to be emotionally attached to your brand immediately. So try taking a step back and thinking of it from an outsider perspective. Number 17, what is your plan to reflect the brand online versus in retail? So will you have certain elements of your brand that are only online? How will you take your online resources and put them in a retail store? How will you take your retail store resources and put them online? Because again, in the same way your brand and your product should be twins, Your online store and your retail store should also be twins. People should have the same experience at both. Number 18, do you ever plan to rebrand? This is a question to ask yourself at the end of the day when you have everything done, when you are thinking about your future. Is this the one you're going to want to use for the next 20 to 30 years? If the answer is no, start from the beginning, guys. I hate to say it, but rebranding is a pain and is awful, and I don't want anyone to ever have to do it. So really try to make sure that this brand is the one you're going to be happy with for the next 20 years. Now, here's the thing. You can say yes to that, and then in 10 years be like, you know what? I'm actually sick of it. I'm changing it. And that's totally fine. But do not go into this with the knowledge that you're going to be changing it. Number 19, in what ways will you make it clear on your website, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and in-store what your brand is? So what a lot of companies have started doing is doing a theme on their Instagram and a theme on their Twitter and just sort of really trying to make it clear of how their brand looks on each platform. And I highly recommend looking into that more because it's a very, very useful tool. Number 20, guys, the most important question. Are you ready? Are you still having fun? This is your company. It is your baby. It is your brand. You need to be having fun. I'm not saying that everything is always going to be fun, nor should it be, but ask yourself every now and then, are you still having fun? Because if it's been 2 years of working at this and you're not having fun and you no longer see the purpose, then maybe you need to reevaluate something. Maybe you need to change something. So are you still having fun? As an incredibly important question, and it's something you need to be asking yourself on a daily basis. Okay, everyone, that is it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing, liking, reviewing, reaching out through social media. Do all the things. It means so much to me when you do. And yeah, I'll see you next time on the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be seeing you next time.
You've been listening to the GSMC Marketing News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to any podcast app, and you'll find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news, you'll find it all on the GSMC Podcast Network. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.